Our gospel lesson today comes from John 17:20 through 26. Please rise in spirit or in body for the reading of the gospel. Hear now the word of our Lord. Jesus said, I'm not praying only for them, but also for those who believe in me because of their word. I pray they will be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. I pray that they will also be in us, so that the world will believe that you sent me. I've given them the glory that you gave me, so that they can be one, just as we are one. I'm in them and you are in me, so that they will be made perfectly one. Then the world will know that you sent me, and that you have loved them just as you loved me. Father, I want those who you gave me to be with me where I am. Then they can see my glory, which you gave me because you loved me before the creation of the world. Righteous Father, even the world didn't know you, but I have known you. And these believers know that you sent me. I've made your name known to them and will continue to make it known so that your love for me will be in them, and I myself will be in them. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Let us pray. Almighty God, may the words of my mouth and indeed the meditation of all of our hearts be acceptable to you, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. You may be seated. When I was in high school, we got cable. We didn't have a lot of channels, but we did have some channels, and one of the channels we had was PBS. And in the late 90s, or mid to late 90s, if you had TBS, you saw one movie over and over and over again, and that was The Shawshank Redemption. I've seen The Shawshank Redemption, maybe not front to back, but at some point, I've seen the entirety of The Shawshank Redemption probably 25 to 30 times. I have it too, so I love that movie. But if you have not seen The Shawshank Redemption, you're about to get some spoilers on about a quarter-century-old movie. So beware. But The Shawshank Redemption is about a man named Andy Dufresne. And Andy is put in a notorious prison for killing his wife and her lover. The thing is, Andy did not do it. So Andy is an innocent man that this movie follows for the next really couple of decades while he is in prison for a crime that he didn't commit. And the prison is a terrible, terrible place. The warden is corrupt. He hires out the convicts to do work, but skims a little bit off the top for himself. The head guard is a terrible, violent man who beats prisoners until they are dead often. It's not a great place. And Andy ultimately makes friends with a group of prisoners, including Red, who definitely did commit the crime that he is in prison for. But throughout the movie, as Andy is in this terrible place in prison, the movie shows how he is, in ways that you would never expect, he's free. He even says it. Over the course of his years in prison, he begins a library for the prisoners. One of my favorite scenes is he writes letters to the state legislature for years and years and years, and finally he gets a shipment of books and records in, and they say, well, we consider this matter closed. We've given you your books. And he had written a letter a week, and they asked him what he's going to do. He said, well, now I'll write 2 letters a week. But he starts this library, but he finds a record it's an opera recording, and he puts it on the turntable and begins to listen listen to it. And he plays it over the entire prison's intercom system. And when the guards finally bust in, they throw him in solitary confinement for a month. And when he finally gets out, they ask him, well, how did you survive in there? He said, the music, it was up here. They can put me in the hole, but they can't take that away from me. As the movie continues, he begins to mentor other young prisoners. He helps other prisoners get their GED and apply to school. He makes a life for himself, and he finds a version of freedom in this movie, in this prison, that he says he never even had outside. And in the process, he helps other people become more free. It's a beautiful movie. I won't give away the ending in case you haven't seen it, but there's some grossness in how he finally does get out of the prison. But it really is kind of this meditation on what it means to be truly free. Is freedom being outside of the bars of the prison? Does it mean to get to do whatever you want? I mean, we would think that the guards and the warden are free, and yet by the end of the movie, the head guard has been arrested and the warden has committed suicide due to their own actions, while Andy remains Andy. I thought about that movie this week as I was reading our passage from Acts. Because this is a passage, this is a story that has to do with freedom and prison and what true freedom actually looks like. Last week we followed Paul and Silas to Philippi. We remember that Philippi is a Roman colony. It's not just a part of the Roman Empire. It is a Roman city. This is a place where retired soldiers of Augustus, the first emperor, have set up shop. They and their families and their descendants lived in Philippi. The laws that are applicable in Rome are also applicable in Philippi. This is the most Roman city outside of Rome and pretty much the entire empire. And Paul has come there, and he's begun to kind of speak to a group and gather a community around him that have begun to hear the words of Jesus Christ and have responded to it. Last week we talked about Lydia, that first convert in Europe. But now Paul he's been there for at least a couple of weeks. We don't know exactly how long. He's going to the place where he gathers with these people to worship. See, they have to go outside of the city because it being a Roman city means that foreign religions can't be inside the walls of town. Only worship of the state gods of Rome is tolerated within Philippi. But every day as they walk around, there is this girl who has been enslaved, who our translation says she has a spirit of divination in her. And every day she points to these men and she says, they are slaves of the Most High God. They are servants of the Most High God, which is super ironic because she is enslaved, and she is pointing to them and saying they are the ones who are. But Paul is this really interesting character, right? I mean, he's great. I love Paul, but he makes me feel good sometimes because he is just as imperfect as I am. I wish, of course, that this had said, because it would be a lot easier to preach, that Paul had compassion on this enslaved girl. Paul had compassion, and he healed her and set her free, but that's not what it says. It says he got annoyed. Because it had just happened day after day after day. And he says he throws the spirit out. Now here's the thing. And I'm going into often says she had a spirit of divination. But the literal translation is that she had a python spirit. She had a python spirit. Now, why does that matter? Why does it matter that it's there? What does that mean that she had a python spirit? And this is where I went down some rabbit holes in the research, but I really enjoyed it. This is what I like doing when I work on sermons. Go down these bunny trails and all this kind of stuff, and sometimes I get lost in them. But this ends up being really important. A python spirit meant that she had been given a spirit by the god Apollo, who was the god of, among other things, soothsaying. Okay, fine. Spirit of divination, python spirit. Basically, Apollo had wrestled this python, and that's what a python spirit means. I won't go into all of that, but just suffice it to say that it associates her with Apollo. Now, why is that important? Well, the Emperor Augustus, the first emperor of the Roman Empire, the one who Philippi was basically refounded by to let his troops have a place, Augustus got his name because he claimed to be the august son of Apollo. That is how he justified, how he gave himself legitimacy as emperor of the entirety of the Roman world. He was a child of Apollo. In other words, this woman, this enslaved woman, this woman who was exploited by her owners, she gains her power. She has her power from the same place that the emperor supposedly has his power from. They are supposedly receiving their abilities, their power, their legitimacy from the same place, and that is the god Apollo. And Paul, not even breaking a sweat, instead annoyed, says, in the name of Christ, you just gut out of her, and the Spirit goes. Now, if you are a city, if you are an empire, if you are an emperor, then the entire legitimacy, the entire justification for your rule over the entire Mediterranean world comes from your saying that you are Apollo's descendant. What would it mean for this backwater evangelist to just throw out a spirit that says they're from Apollo? I'll tell you what it would say. It would be terrifying. Because Paul is not just getting this woman off of his back. Paul is making a claim that Jesus Christ, the one he follows, is more powerful than any other spirit, than any god that the Romans have, Apollo included. And if Jesus is more powerful, if Jesus is more legitimate than Apollo, that means Christ is more powerful than the emperor himself. Now let me tell you something about emperors. They don't like hearing that. Nor do the governments that work for them. And so the owners of this woman, the people who claim to own this woman, they drag Paul into court because they've lost a source of income. They drag him into court, drag me and Silas into court, but they don't say, well, now look, he's thrown a spirit out of our slave, and now we don't have any way to make money off of her anymore. That's not what they claim. They claim that he is a foreigner, that he practices another religion, that he is coming into this place. He is coming into our city. He is crossing our walls, and he is trying to change our culture. He's trying to make things different. He's following a different religion. He speaks funny. He looks different. We need to throw this guy in jail. We haven't quite gotten over that in the last 2,000 years, but there it is. And so he says, they bring him to court, and well, that's what they do. Because, Paul and Silas are actually doing the things that they have been accused of doing. They are preaching a religion that is contrary to the Roman religion. They are setting slaves free, even if it's not for the right reasons. And there were two things the Romans could not abide. You could get away with just about anything, but you could not rebel against Rome, and you could not set slaves free. Those were the two things that would get you into most trouble. And of course, these owners, right? These owners, they think they're free. But they depend upon enslaving other people, and they're terrified of what Paul and Silas represent. They are just as imprisoned as the woman that they had enslaved. And the government, they throw Paul and Silas into literally a hole. We think of prisons not as nice places, but as better than what the Romans had, which were literally holes in the ground. They threw Paul and Silas into a hole in the ground, naked and shackled. I told you a couple weeks ago when we kind of had the same deal happening with Peter, that I would probably not handle this well. Being in prison would not be a time where I would celebrate or sing. And yet, surrounded by all these people who think that they're free, and yet are imprisoned by their own fear, by their own hatred, by their own prejudice, by their own need for others' approval, like the guard, who will try to kill himself later because he thinks that he's been shamed. He thinks that his job has not been done well. These men, these disciples, in the worst possible condition they could be in, they sing. They sing. They sing. Because they're not afraid. Because no matter what the powers of the world have tried to do to them, they cannot really and truly take away the freedom that they have found in Jesus Christ. They have stood up to the forces of empire. They have stood up to the forces of greed. They have stood up to the forces of hatred. And by all accounts, it looks like they've been beaten, but they haven't been. They're free. Because they know no matter what happens, God is with them. They know no matter what happens, the Christ who died on the cross and was raised again is there with them. They know that the worst thing that can be done to them is they can be killed. And if that's all that can be done, that's nothing. They've seen resurrection. They know death is not the last word of the story. And so they sing because they're free. Oh, they're in chains. In a hole in the ground with a grate where rule is dumped on them so they have something to eat. But they're free. Because they know who's with them. They know that they are loved. They know that they are forgiven. And the big ironic thing that happens in the midst of all this is you have this jailer, and he's the one who's supposed to be watching over them, and yet this earthquake just happens, right? And the chains fall off of them, and the doors to this prison are opened up, and the jailer just assumes that they have taken off after this, because, I would. And he's about to kill himself. Just like the warden in Shawshank Redemption. But they yell out. And this is the beauty of the freedom that Christ gives us and has given Paul and Silas. This man who has watched over while they have been beaten and chained and stripped and imprisoned. He's about to kill himself, and instead of thinking, well, this guy's got to getting his just desserts, they call out, don't do that. Don't do that. We're still here. We're still here. We've been freed. And we still are. No matter where we are. And he yells out the words that I think we all want to know. Now, he's not speaking spiritually at this point. He is just simply asking, what do I need to do to be saved? What do I need to do to be rescued? What do I need to do so I don't get in trouble for what's happened here? What do I need to do to be rescued? What do I need to do to be free like you are free? And they say, look, the whole world has been arrayed against us because we have seen the ways that this all things and all fall short of the glory of God. We have seen slavery and torture and hatred. We have seen this. But we know that that is not the last word. We trust in Jesus Christ. We trust that God has so loved the world, has so loved us, and so loved you and loved all of us, that God has sent God's own Son to save us, to rescue us, to transform us, to make this world something more than it is right now. So if you want to know the freedom that we have, just trust in Christ. Trust in the one God sent. And he does. And this final irony of the story is the jailer, the one who is supposed to be watching over them, the one who is supposed to be imprisoning them, becomes their host. He takes them home and he washes off their wounds from where they had been beaten. And he clothes them. And he and his entire household come to have that same trust and belief in Christ that Paul and Silas had, that Lydia last week had found. Because he saw what true freedom looked like. It wasn't lording it over prisoners. It wasn't being able to put people in jail. It wasn't being able to tell the future. It wasn't being able to make lots of money off the enslavement of others. True freedom was knowing that Christ loved them, that saved them, and brought us all into a knowledge of the God who will not and does not give up on us. The one who prayed, God, if they know me, they will know you, and if I am in them, you will be in them. When we know Christ, wants none of